Hi, friends, and welcome to the Heartful Parent Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Keating. In this podcast, we talk about it all, our parenting, our partnering, and our professional lives, because they are all a part of us, and we were never meant to do this alone. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It is, as always, a pleasure and a joy and a privilege to have you joining me this week. You know, if you've listened to the podcast for any period of time, you've heard me talk about positive discipline and, relationship and the importance of parenting in a different way than we were likely parented. And we're going to dig into that in even more detail today with my guest, who I'm so thrilled to introduce you to, Reem Raouda. Reem is a certified conscious parenting coach, certified through Dr. Shafali Sabari's program. And she is the parent of a strong-willed child and the founder of the Connected Discipline Method, which is a coaching program for parents of strong-willed children. And what she and I really dig into in this conversation is discipline. And what does discipline look like when we are not coming at parenting from an authoritarian sort of traditional approach, but how we do it, or what discipline looks like, how we think about discipline when we are being more conscious, intentional, gentle, positive parents. And so Reem and I spend some time digging into that. And then toward the end of our conversation, we also dig into, what do we need to do if you do have one of those particularly strong-willed kids, where, a lighter touch or something a little different is needed. And I just love the wisdom that Reem shares here, and the way that she helps us think about discipline. It's so very in line with my own thinking on this topic. And so I'm thrilled for you to hear this. Without further ado, Reem Raouda. Reem, welcome to the podcast. It is so great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
When you and I first connected, and when I first kind of learned about the work that you do, I was really excited to dive into this conversation, because there are lots of people out there that are talking about positive parenting and gentle parenting and positive discipline and conscious parenting and all of those kind of iterations on a theme, right? But we haven't really dug in on this podcast yet in a thorough way into discipline and what discipline looks like when we're not parenting from sort of an authoritarian, traditional parenting space.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited to dig into that with you today.
Me too.
So let's just kind of start by laying out, if you will, what the difference is between sort of more traditional discipline and the type of discipline that you and I advocate for.
Sure. Yes. So, most of us have been disciplined in the traditional way, where it's behavior based. Is this good behavior? Is this bad behavior? And to our parents, discipline means to punish, means punishment. And the way we look at it, and the way Dr. Dan Siegel and all of them kind of describe it, is discipline really means to teach, to guide. So it's has nothing to do with punishment, actually. And so this is where the difference is, but also there's so much behind it. We can go into, what discipline, the styles and the gentle parenting and the conscious parenting, but really, I think the foundation of discipline for me and for, the message I'm trying to get out there is that punishment is not discipline. Yes, I believe our children do need discipline. They need to be guided and taught, but they do not need to be punished. And not because punishment doesn't work, although it doesn't. It's just, it's not even close. It's the opposite of what they need. really, and they don't learn. We punish because we want them to learn, but punishment actually stunts their learning, puts them in defensive mode rather than learning mode. And we'll get into all of that, I'm sure, a little
Yes,
later, but that's the basis of it. It's really guiding and teaching. And then there's a whole emotional aspect of it too.
I love that. What I really appreciate about what you just said that I think is sort of worthy of repeating and really driving home is that the reason that parents punish, or I think in modern parlance is, we give consequences, which is kind of a coded way of saying we're punishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is because we want them to learn a lesson. We want them to
Yeah.
learn something.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just laid out, and we'll dig into the why, but is that
Yeah.
they're not learning in that moment. They
No.
can't learn.
No, absolutely not. And it's not true cooperation either. It's not, there's control and fear. That's the reason they're complying in the moment when we punish and make them suffer in some way,
Mhm.
so that no lesson is learned other than, you know, they learn to have self-criticism and self-loathing, and that we're supposed to use power and authority to get our way. So they do learn something, but it's all the wrong lessons that they learn.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So then when we are thinking about discipline through this kind of new lens and thinking about it from that idea of it's to teach,
Mhm.
um, well, and maybe even backing up, what do you see either through the punishment lens or through the sort of this positive, gentle parenting lens? What are some of the most common mistakes that you see parents making?
Number one is we threaten them so quickly. That's the go-to is, okay, then you're not going to get this. Okay, then I'm going to take this away. Okay, you're not going to the birthday party. Okay, no iPad. Okay, the threats come so quickly and easily. And that it's somewhat a facade when they cooperate to that, because it's not, again, real cooperation. They're doing it because they don't want that consequence or that bribe or whatever. They want the reward. Um, um, but also too, I've heard in one of your podcasts, you said that, it was like 10 years ago that parents were more authoritarian and heavy-handed, but I see it a lot today still. It's still really, really happening and going on. And I speak to parents every day, and I'm like, wow, there's hitting, there's still harsh punishments and verbal punishment. So it's still a big problem. Yes, gentle parenting has made a splash, and positive parenting and conscious parenting, but it's still in so many homes, parents believe, and I don't blame them for believing this. This is all we know. This is all they know. This is how they were parented. This is what we were told, how we were told to parent. Even, you're a good parent if you're strict. You're a good parent if you have full control over your child. You're a bad parent if you can't control your child. So we have all these messages that are really so misaligned with what our children really need. So we're starting off from such the wrong foot, as I did, and just trying to, wake us all up, which I'm so glad I woke up to the fact that we're doing it wrong. We're just doing it backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you're totally right that although this new style of parenting is um becoming more prevalent, and certainly in certain pockets of the
Mhm.
country and of the communities, I think like you, I still speak with parents on a daily basis and this is a question I get a lot, and I'd love to hear your response to it. Well, if I can't punish them,
Mm.
then what do I do? Right?
I know.
Because parents don't want to just let things go,
Yeah.
or they don't want
Yeah.
to let their kids quote unquote get away with
Way
it.
with it.
Right. So
Yes.
what does that what does that look like when we're not threatening, taking things away, sending them to their room? You know,
Yeah.
what do we do?
I know. Well, so because they think that they're not doing their job unless the child learns from it. But the learning is in the parent showing some sense of emotional regulation themselves and being able to lend that to their child. And, the learning is, how do we de-escalate situations? How do we feel the anger, but not react in anger so quickly and so activated? How do we, feel sad, but not, hit the sister or brother? That's the learning. The learning is in the moment, not in, okay, go to your room now and learn and be by yourself.
Mhm.
And, a whole can of worms of stuff that happens there. So I think it takes, a parent, a brave parent to go further and to really understand that there is no lesson to teach in that moment. Life is the lesson. The moment your response is the lesson. How you react is the lesson. And and a punishment, children don't learn from being shamed or being made to feel worse about themselves. That's they're not learning anything, and
Yeah.
you've just created a wider gap between you and them and strained the relationship. So it's seeing what's really going on, I think, might motivate them to stop those ways that are not just damaging, but also they're not working. Every parent I speak to says, like, nothing's working. I'm doing this, I'm taking this away. They don't care if I take anything away. They don't, I'm threatening, they don't care. So not that if it worked, it would make it right, but it's not working for a reason, for a reason.
Right. Right. Well, and what I think I've seen is that when it does work, as you've already pointed out, it works because now our children are operating from a place of fear and a place of sort of being beat down as
Yes.
opposed to respect and true cooperation.
Yes, and it's not respect at all. It's fear. There's a big difference. I thinking back, even in my own life, it was fear-based parenting, and I don't remember feeling respect. I was just scared, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting sort of mental exercise, if you will, to have
Mhm.
all of us kind of pause for a minute and think about what is the difference between fear and respect, and what did we actually feel towards our own parents
Yes,
when we were
absolutely.
young.
Yeah, the biggest exercise um, for us parents is to go back into our childhoods and examine and remember and to really deconstruct our relationship with our parents, the way they parented us, and how it's showing up in our parenting today. And really, really uncovering the truth of what happened to us and not just, it was good. I had a great childhood. I'm okay. Look at me. I'm fine. And I'm
Mhm.
like, are you fine? Are we fine? I'm not fine. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot of us. I hear a lot of adults say that. Well, I turned out okay, or
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah.
Um, but is that really the gauge that we want to
Yeah.
be using?
Yes. And most of us are not fine.
Right.
Really not fine. We're on antidepressants. We're addicted to something. We're miserable. We're not happy. We're still finding ourselves. We're in a toxic relationship. A lot of us are struggling. And I really believe that the root of that is the parent-child dynamic from our childhoods that has such a huge impact on it. So we can't move forward and be this gentle parent that's not being fake, really gentle parent and real conscious parent without tracing back and connecting the dots and making sense of what happened to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back just a little bit because we started talking about some of the mistakes that parents make when they're, using discipline or
Yeah,
engaged in discipline. And you said, well, the number one is that we threaten our
yeah,
children.
yeah.
Are there other mistakes that you see as really common amongst parents when they're trying to figure out this whole discipline puzzle?
Yes. The main one I think is that we believe that just because we are the parent, that that'll in itself on its own means that the child should listen and cooperate. Just because I said so. That's why. Because I'm your parent, you listen to me, and that's not how it works, and that's not how they operate. They don't care that we're the parent and we gave birth and we pushed for 10 hours. They respond to the relationship we have with them. And we parent also from a place of our expectations instead of parenting from a place of their needs. So a lot of acting out happens in the first place because they cannot keep up or they can't, what's the word I'm looking for? They can't meet our expectations.
Mhm.
And a lot of our expectations are misaligned to where they are developmentally. So they cannot take it, they cannot handle it, and then they act out, and then we punish them for, doing something a 4-year-old is supposed to do. And then it's just, it's sad to me that, that that kids, and I did it too, I'm not perfect, that we're just so conditioned on just to look at the sheer behavior and not go deeper and not understand. And there's always a need behind the behavior. And there's a saying that said, if we knew the real reason behind the misbehavior, it wouldn't make us angry, it would make us cry.
Mm.
And really that's the truth. It's the truth. They're either not feeling seen, they're not feeling heard, they're not feeling validated, they're jealous of their sibling, they're stressed, they have anxiety already. That they feel too pressured or too coerced or too pushed. They don't feel a sense of worthiness, they don't feel unconditionally accepted by us, they don't feel unconditionally loved. Those are the reasons, or they're lacking connection with us. Those are the culprits.
Yes.
Or it's just age appropriate behavior and we just don't know how to handle it.
Right, which I think is another one we sort of forget about, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes kids are just kids.
Yeah. They're supposed to be. And 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 trying to rush them into acting older than they are. I hear a lot of parents say, but he's in grade 1 now. Or he's 5 now. Like he's so old. I'm like, he's only 5. Change that. But he's 5 but he's only 5. Only 5.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's,
I'd love
it,
to remember like this little human's only been on the planet for
I
five
know.
years.
I
Like,
literally go like this, 3. Like I have to remind sometimes we have to remember, but I know I get it because that's what we know. That's how we've been parented, pushed to grow older, to adulthood quickly, learn how to do this on your own. You should know better. Don't do that. Don't do that. And they really don't know, you
yeah,
know? They're not manipulating us. They're not malicious. They didn't say, I'm gonna get her tomorrow. I'm gonna be so annoying. That it doesn't.
yes. I'm so happy that you just said that because that word manipulation, I hear a lot of parents say, but my
Yes,
kid's manipulating me.
yes,
And
yes,
that
yes.
just and I think when I was a brand new parent before, sort of like you, I
Mhm.
woke up and learned some better ways to do this. But I think there was an aspect that I thought too, my child's manipulating me. And now that word makes my skin crawl.
Yes, yes. And I get how, yes, some kids are so smart and they know how, like yes, they know what they're doing, but there's still a reason that they're doing it. They're manipulating, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's still another layer underneath. Why are they doing this?
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yep. Trying to get those needs met, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, um, when we like, let's give an example.
Mm.
Um, we've got a child who is has had a rough day at school. Maybe the parent doesn't know that, but child's had a rough day at school, and child comes home at, let's say, from third grade, and I'm making this up as I go, but
Yeah.
child comes home, they drop their backpack in the entryway, kick off their shoes, they don't put things away. They, go into the kitchen to get a snack, take something out of the refrigerator, leave sticky jelly on the counter. And then parent comes in and says something about it, or gets frustrated. The house cleaners were just there, and now there's sticky jelly on the counter, and there's backpack and shoes in the entryway, and they say something, and the kid snaps, and, oh, mom or dad, just leave me alone anyway, right? So now we've got the mess, stickiness, and what that parent feels is disrespect.
Mm.
So if that's our scenario, and I think that's probably one many parents listening to
Yes.
can relate to, whether you have a teenager or a third grader.
Yeah.
All right, I'm like, this could actually be something my teenager would do. Um, how do we, as a parent, dig in that moment and address that from that lens of teaching? How
Okay.
would
Yeah.
you walk a parent through that?
Well, first, I don't think that the child needs to have a bad day at school or a rough day at school to come home exhausted and need to decompress and just be, it's always, I mean, my child does not go to school. So I have my feelings about school, but most of my clients, they do go to school, and I always remind them it's a lot for them, to be there all day and the expectations and all the stuff there. It's a lot. So when they come home, kind of like you know, expect some feelings or some quiet, like just expect that, and expect them to not maybe want to do anything when they get home and just relax. Second, though, in that moment, I always remind the parent, we set the stage with our tone and our manner, how we speak to them. Okay, so in that moment, but first, before even speaking, I would look at it and be like, okay, you know what? They're so happy to be home. They just want to relax. Like, I get it. And yeah, the cleaner just came, but I have a kid, and the house is always messy, and that's how it is. Like, do I expect it to be spotless just because the cleaner came? No, I know it's gonna look like a bomb just hit it 5 minutes later. That's life, right? So there's an expectation that you might have to lower, right away. And then I would go to the tone and manner and be like, oh, it looks like you had a day. I get it. But we want, after you relax, let's just tidy up together. Do you want me to help you? Or let's just get this, you know, it, refrain from you have to, or this must. Those just cause resistance right away. Right. So the way we say it, and just what, like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's because it's not. We make it a huge deal, and it's not. It's okay. Yes, jam is on the fridge. We'll wipe it, and that's it. We don't have to, so it's first the parent, the way you look at things, the way we look at things. And you can stress yourself out if you want and make it a huge deal and yell and scream, or you can say it's not a big deal. Or, I'm not saying you wipe and let them, quote unquote, get away with it. But I'm that, or you could say, look, you left this. Do you want me to wipe it? Are you going to wipe it? Should we wipe? Like, but it's mainly, if you don't want it to become a big deal, don't make it a big deal.
Mm.
And I see, you left some stuff after I know you're tired, and I know you're hungry, and you probably just rushed through the kitchen and got that sandwich. But when you're done, just clean it up. Can you clean it up? I'd
Yeah.
appreciate that. but it's all in your manner. And if you're coming at it frustrated, annoyed, and aggressive, then they're gonna respond aggressive, annoyed, and they won't want to do it.
Yeah. Such a good point that sometimes things escalate because we escalate them,
Yeah, yeah,
not because our children escalate
yeah,
them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we get in our own heads about what's important or what needs to be a certain way.
Oh,
Um,
yes,
and if we
yes.
can pause before we
Yeah, yeah.
engage them.
Yeah, a lot of the stressors are just the parents' need for perfection, or, they feel almost it's a part of their identity, or their success as a parent, how well, like, they feel offended when their child does something like that and it says something about them, but it's nothing to do with you. So if
Mhm.
you can detach from that and be like, that's just them being a kid, messy kid, and it's not a big deal. And I'll mention it, but I'm not going to mention it in a way that makes them feel bad, or makes them want to not do it, or makes them resent me, or makes them angry, or makes them feel feel, you know, that just a disconnection.
Yeah.
Right? You can say things in a connected way. That's my whole kind of thing, is that we discipline by disconnecting. And that's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We should always, that's what makes them want to quote unquote cooperate and listen, is when they feel connected. That's the
Yeah.
whole motivation behind it all. Right? But we keep screwing it up by disconnecting with them. And then we wonder why they don't want to do it. But it's human nature to resist that power and control and coercion and pressure,
Totally.
for us
Totally.
too, for every person.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my professional life before what I call act one of my professional life, right? When I was working as an attorney,
Mhm.
and the supervisors or bosses that I had, I had a variety of them over my many years. Some of them were wonderful, some were not so wonderful.
Mhm.
And there were some who I would have bent over backwards for
Mhm.
because of the respect with which they treated me and the connection that I felt with them.
See?
And there are some who they would make a request, and my initial response was, screw you. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And unfortunately, I get it. Parents are so frustrated, especially if they have a challenging child who's strong-willed, or who's going, has something going on, that, they're overwhelmed and they're exhausted. I get that. I've been there. So when we are in that state, we respond, you know, with more control, with the sound of, we're annoyed, and and that, how, of course, that's not going to transfer well, and that's not going to motivate your child to, like, yes, whatever you say, I
Right.
want to do it. No, absolutely not.
Right. So you actually just mentioned something that I think is really important to dig into just a little bit more because,
Mhm,
if we go back to the scenario with, um, the dropping the backpack and the sticky jam and whatever,
mhm,
um, for many of our kids, and I would put mine in this bucket, if I went up to them super calmly and was like, oh, kiddo, you got jam everywhere, like, make sure you wipe that down when you're done, or could you please wipe that down when you're done? Um, Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, my kids would probably say, "Yeah, I got it, mom. No problem." Especially my teenager, who's eminently capable of doing that at this point.
yeah.
But some parents are dealing with particularly strong-willed kids.
Mhm,
And I know that this is something that you put a lot of emphasis in your work on,
mhm.
is how do we translate some of these skills to those kids who are just more inclined because of who they are
Yeah.
to dig their heels in and say, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what do
Yeah.
we do then?
Yes. Well, unfortunately, it's not a quick fix because this defiance that we're dealing with has come from somewhere, and it's there for a reason. And so to undo it, there's some work to be done, because as Dr. Laura Markham says, defiance is not a discipline problem, it's a relationship issue.
Mhm.
So
Love that.
yes, me too, I love it. So somewhere, and most of the time it's through traditional discipline, that we've caused a strain in the relationship. We've caused some anger, we've caused resentment, we've caused maybe the child to not feel seen and heard. And then add on top of that, if the child is strong-willed and genuinely strong-willed, then their main needs are control, power, and independence, and autonomy, and trust. So, and with traditional discipline, all of those things are non-existent for the
Right.
child, right? We strip it from them, literally. So, so they are just now super defensive, right? And defiant. And I always tell parents, strong-willed doesn't mean defiant and defensive. A strong-willed child is what I said. They like to be independent, autonomous. They need to feel in control of their own lives. The defiance and defensiveness comes when we work against that temperament and literally take it away from them. Then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
war.
Yeah. Fireworks.
Yes, yes. And so the first place I would start is working on the relationship, though, and understanding deeply that your child, it's not your child that you're up against, it's their resistance. So how do we move that resistance to cooperation? So by giving them what they need to feel a sense of control. So if you need them to do something, offer choices, make them feel like they are making the decision. And in every interaction, I ask my son if he has, water outside and I don't, and it's hot, I ask him, can I have a sip of your water? I show respect, it's his thing. It's not my water, it's his. I'm not just going to grab it. And most parents think that I'm crazy for that. But no, because these little things matter. He feels respected. And then when you feel respected, you respect your parent back, right? And then he'll respect my things. So looking at how you're talking to your child, how you are, your tone with them, your level of connection with them. Are you taking the time to listen, actively listen? Because a child, again, will only listen when they feel listened to. So are you getting down on their level, eye to eye, without distraction, without your phone, and really taking the time every day to be present with your child and build that trust? Take away all the punishments, stop punishing, stop giving them a reason to, resist. Don't give them something to resist, and there's nothing to fight about. But we actually plant it. I'm sorry, I know that parents don't want to hear it. Yes, they have that temperament, but we co-create the resistance and we co-create the defiance. We do, because we children don't behave as they do react. So they're reacting to the environment we create. Are we giving them power? Do they feel in control, or do they feel powerless or completely out of control, restless? Do they feel that we trust them, or are we always micromanaging and no, 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 you can't do that, or look what you did. I knew you would do, but stepping back. And I always tell parents, try not talking so much. This is huge. This is such an underrated skill.
Yes.
Stop talking. I mean, stop. Like if you could go a couple days and Dr. Shafali calls it a verbal detox. Yes, it's magical because then the child can start trusting themselves, feels that you trust them, feels that you accept them, feels that you're watching. Yes, watchful eye, but you don't have to comment and opinionate and fix and teach and learn and let them be, let them feel empowered. And that's huge. They have to feel empowered and good inside to be good on the outside.
Yeah.
So it all starts on how we're relating to them, how we're interacting, how we're speaking, the level and also just that emotional uh they need to feel emotionally seen and attached. And that matters. We get so focused on their behavior and what they did and what they didn't do. And did you do your homework? Did you do the dishes? Did you do this? And we're not like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How did that make you feel? You know, we don't we forget. And then that need goes unmet and goes inside and then shows up in behavior as well.
Yeah. Such good wisdom. And I love that idea of just stopping talking
Yeah.
for a little
Yeah.
while, right?
Yes.
Letting
Yes.
there be space that then they can step into in their own power and their own confidence and their own autonomy and
Yes.
all of those things, right?
Yes. Yes. It's so powerful. And it also is such great practice for us parents because we see that lets us see how controlling we've been, and how micromanaging we've been and how talkative we've been and how on top of things. And it's good to kind of look in the mirror and see that and know it. And then,
Yes.
really it's giving them such a beautiful gift. I think it was Dr. Shafali that said this too, or Dr. Vanessa Lapointe. It was Vanessa Lapointe. She said that allows a child to hear their own thoughts, right? And to
Hmm.
make their own opinions about things and
Yeah.
let them say, this is beautiful, this is nice, this makes me feel good. Not like, oh, look, that's so nice, right? Or look, you know what I mean? Let them tell themselves what's nice, what they like, what they enjoy. Let them hear their own thoughts with silence, through silence.
Love it.
Yeah.
I just love that idea. And then focusing on that relationship, because as you
Yeah.
said, it's a tough thing for all of us as parents to come to grips with, but we do co-create the
Hmm.
dynamic that we
Absolutely.
have with our children, right? This isn't something that we dictate, it's not something they dictate. It was created together, and
Yes.
if it's not in a place we want it, we have to unravel it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And, they say if a plant is not blossoming, do we yell at the plant? What do? We water it, we nurture it, we give it sunlight, we give it what it needs to thrive and to grow. And same for children, we don't blame them. They cannot grow. Sorry to name drop, but Dr. Ross Green says, a child, he says, children do well if they can, not if they
Yep.
want to.
Yep.
So, and that's a big, mistake parents make. We think that they know better. They know better. They should know better. No, they can't. If they could, they would. They don't want this conflict as much as we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Such an important reminder. And I love that sort of visual to end on, which is the idea that, if a plant isn't thriving,
Yeah.
we give it the environment that it needs. We don't yell at the plant, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Reem, it has been such a pleasure to be
Oh,
in conversation with you about this and to think about discipline through a different lens, and also discipline for those strong-willed kiddos,
yeah.
which, strong-willed can serve them well if we nurture it
Oh,
in the right way, right?
absolutely. I'm jealous of my son's strong will. I wish I had it.
Yeah. Yeah. Reem, what is the best place for people to find you who would like to follow your work, would like to learn more? Where should we send them?
Yeah, thank you. So highloveparenting.com is my website. I'm on Instagram at highloveparenting, and I do have a program for parents of strong-willed children who need help with, the discipline and getting cooperation and shifting the energy and the dynamic in their home from, chaos to calm. So,
love it. Love it. And we will put all of those links in the show notes for folks to find. Reem, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. I know we're really aligned on all of this stuff, and I love being in conversation.
Same here. I appreciate you having me so much, and this was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for that conversation. I hope you got as much out of it as I did and as I'd hoped. Discipline is a challenging thing for a lot of parents, and when we move into a more sort of positive discipline approach, as Reem and I talked about, there are a lot of parents, and you might be one of them, who sort of think, well, but what do I do instead? Right? What does discipline look like instead? And that is a challenge, because so many of us have had it drilled in that there's no learning without consequences. There's no learning without punishment. And as Reem and I sort of established in this conversation, that's just not the case, right? That's just not the case. So I hope that, this gave you sort of a new perspective, a new lens, maybe gave you some new ideas. And as always, if you are struggling to put this into action, of course, you know where you can find Reem, and all of her information is in our show notes. And you can also reach out to me. The Heartful Parent Academy is designed to support parents just like you who are looking for a way to take some of these new ideas and implement them on a daily basis. And I would love to have you as a member. For more information, there will be links to that in the show notes as well. But you can also go to my website at theheartfulparent.com, click on the Heartful Parent Academy, and everything you need to know is right there. I would love to see you inside the Academy, and whether you join us there or not, I hope to see you back next week for another episode of the Heartful Parent Podcast. Take care and happy parenting. Cheers, everyone.